In this video, we will be sharing with you some ways you can incorporate stitch release into your workflow to validate and adjust garment fitting. Stitch release is a feature that allows you to reduce or release the tension of a stitch for fitting purposes. You can use this feature to replicate real-world practices. Let's explore some workflows to see the application of this feature. Looking at the garment, the overall impression is that it's a bit too tight. We can use the tension and pressure maps to check. These pants need to be quite tight, so the yellow-colored areas in our maps are okay. But the orange-colored areas are too tight. We'll start by using the internal lines on the hips to measure the garment. In the context view, we can see the 2D and 3D measurements. There's about 10% difference between the values. For this type of fabric, it's a bit too much. We now go to the main toolbar to select the Stitch tool. Then click on the side seam. In the context view, we go to Release and drag the slider to 55%. Then we click Dress to see the result. After the simulation is finished, we again check the internal lines on the hips. In the context view, we can see that this time the 2D and 3D measurements are almost the same. This is not the correct fit for this type of fabric, so we need to try again. This time, after selecting the same side seam, we set the release value to 30%. Then click Dress to see the result. After the simulation is finished, we again check the internal lines on the hips. In the context view, we can see that now there's about 5% difference between the 2D and 3D measurements. This is what we want. We'll use the 3D measuring tape to measure the widest part of the gap. It's about 1.7 centimeters. We need to widen the pattern piece accordingly. To do this, we'll enable Edit Points and use the Multi-Move feature. We'll add pins to the calf to avoid widening at the bottom part of the pants. Next, we'll edit the pattern at the widest part of the hips. In the context view, we'll add half of the 1.7 centimeters gap, meaning 0.85 centimeters, to both the front and the back pieces. Finally, we cancel the stitch release on the side seam. Click Dress and check the result. We can see in the tension and pressure maps that most of the orange color has disappeared, and the fit is perfect. Next, we're trying to balance the length of a dress. When viewing this garment from the side, we can see that the front looks shorter than the back. Also, the side seam is pulled forward. To start, we set the stitch tension release of the shoulder seam to 64%. And the front yoke seam to 70%. We can see in the side view that the release we made is not enough. Let's change this to 82%. Now the length looks balanced and the side seam is perpendicular to the floor. Let's measure the gap on the shoulder seam with a 3D measuring tape. It's about 1 centimeter. We'll also measure the gap between the yoke seam. It's almost 2 centimeters. We'll use the Slash and Spread feature for a quick view of the pattern correction. We add 1 centimeter to the shoulder. For the yoke seam, we divide the missing 2 centimeters between both parts of the yoke, and so add 1 centimeter to each. Finally, we set the stitch tension release back to 0 for both seams. And when we review the garment from the side view, we can see the length is now balanced. For this garment, we can see we have some drag lines between the bust and the neck, but we don't know what the cause is. We'll use the stitch release to separate the pieces and view them. We release the stitch almost to the maximum to allow the fabric to drape naturally. We can see that there are waves in the facing and the front body. This means there is excess fabric. We'll use the pen tool to mark the exact areas that need to be edited. We'll duplicate the front piece for a pattern correction test. We don't want this piece to influence the whole garment, so we turn off the Use in 3D checkbox. We'll use the mark as a slice line and rotate the slice pieces to eliminate some of the excess fabric. Before moving on, we need to merge these two pieces. The merge feature creates a third piece. We keep the new piece and delete the other two. We want to have the same amount of corner points as the original shape. To achieve this, we delete the extra points and smoothen the lines. Now we'll compare the lengths of the new piece with the facing front piece. There's 1 centimeter difference. We'll split this 1 centimeter to half, 5 millimeters. We slide down the shoulder. For the 5 millimeters, we'll use slash and close. To replace the two front patterns, we first use Shift and click to select both pieces. Then we go to the Resources tabs. On the 2D part, we click on the hamburger icon to display a menu. We click Replace Pieces, then Between Two selected. We need to set the stitch release back to 0. We click Dress, and now we see the wrinkles are gone. To clean up the file, we'll delete the unnecessary pieces and implement the spread. And that's how you can use the Stitch Tension Release feature to help improve your design and improve 3D fit. For more information, visit support.browseware.com.